So that's the two of the three treasures. So we're talking there about the biological organism and the flame that keeps it active. Then, you know, again, as I was saying earlier, the beauty of the Taoist system is all of the emphasis is placed on our spiritual growth. And so what good is a physical body and maintenance unless we're actually getting in touch with our higher calling or our higher frequencies? And of course, raw food, you know, being alive brings us into contact with that. And but the herbs really enhance that, and a great deal of emphasis was put on our spiritual health. The Chinese named that to be the third treasure, which they called Xin. They call Xin. Xin literally means spirit. So the great Xin herbs are, of course, reishi mushroom. It's just
wow,
at the top.
Look at that.
Reishi mushroom is an herb that the Chinese have revered for thousands of years. They call it the herb of spiritual immortality. Not much literature is found in the Chinese medical literature, which is very extensive. Not much literature is found on the history of reishi because it was really one of those, wow, this is really cool, let's kind of keep it for the elite.
Yeah.
And the common people couldn't have it apparently at times in the past. Only my teacher Ron Teagard and a few others were able to bring it out of China pretty recently, and now the internet, we're exploding with it, and you're out there talking about it.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? It's incredible.
Ancient scroll paintings depict this as being a sort of a bridge between earth and heaven. You'll see earth down here and heaven above, and there's like a rock escarpment, and there's a reishi there, and right in the middle.
Wow.
And we know that the mushrooms affect mental alchemy, and we're out there talking about how they may even be involved in the construction and original of the neurosystems of
the world. Yeah.
Of all symbiosis.
We might want to digress for a minute and talk about that. We had this conversation about these cyanobacteria forms. If you want to grab that there, thanks, Rehmannia. This is a cyanobacteria kind of form that was on the ancient earth, and that was one of the first organisms to come out onto the land. And then as it rotted down, it started developing carbon, and then that carbon became a substrate whereby the mushroom could actually take hold. The spores could actually get into that substrate, and the next thing you know, they were building a lattice of information, neurotransmitters in the soil.
And complex multicellular organisms started to
arise from that.
Move on to land.
Yeah, move on to land. So mushrooms have played a critical role in moving on to land.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. The spores of these were dusted already all over the dry land. And these morphed out of the ocean. It's sort of the land-sea interface, is a mixture of probably dying algae and then the bacteria inhabiting it.
Yeah.
And then that dying back and creating a carbon substrate for these mycelia to run through. And mycelial networks look like neurological systems. I think a wonderful study would be the cytoplasm of the cell. Its relationship to
mushrooms?
Mushroom mycelia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely the pictures I've seen indicate that you're correct. That there's a very close relationship. And so this whole thing about consciousness and these mycelial networks is very deep. Now this is Shen, and this is like spirituality in your spirit. What else here do we have that fits into this mold? Like what else would fit into this?
You know, going back to the big picture of the three treasures, in order to answer that question for 1 second, the criteria, one of the primary criteria that defines a tonic herb is that it has to tonify more than one treasure.
Okay.
So, and tonify more than one organ system. It has to be more broad spectrum to the whole. But I would say almost all of the herbs that are considered tonics herbs, and there are about 70 herbs considered tonics in all the Chinese material method, which is probably like nearly 30,000 herbs in total. There's only about 70 that are actually considered tonics. So if it entered into that elite status, and through a lot of very, very close scrutiny.
Yeah.
I would say almost all of the tonic herbs that are called tonics, like goji is definitely a tonic herb. Schizandra is a tonic herb, no doubt.
This is really great for those of us who have never seen schizandra berries before.
Yeah.
You've got some really good schizandra here. And then, then we have the goji, right? And then we've got over there the longan, and pretty much we've got the three sisters, right?
Longan berry is very tasty herb. This has a lot of iron, and it calms the heart. It's in a special formula called ginseng and longan that women use when they have anemia and stress on the heart. Yeah, really tasty stuff. But really, primarily, herbs that are classified as Shen herbs would be asparagus root, Now, also, for your information, the red pigmented asparagus roots are best. Like this one's got a little of that. I was waiting to get some of that, and they just didn't get it for me in time to come here. And I got this one instead. But this is still really good stuff. But asparagus root...
This is like soft and chewy and pliable. It's really an interesting...
It's an edible, yeah. It's
food.
Many of these herbs are quite tasty, actually.
And I find it so interesting because we're so familiar with asparagus.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Every American knows what asparagus is. But we were not aware that asparagus root is first-class herb, tonic herb in Chinese medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. Asparagus root is the herb that is said to... the ancient shape, the ancient, the wise pre-shamans, they were called immortals of China, and they could fly and shapeshift into dragons. This is the herb that was attributed to their ability to fly. Now, apparently, there are still old sages in the mountains of China who fly around, and they say this is the flying herb.
The flying herb, asparagus root. Who knew? It's always right under our nose.
When you take asparagus root, you do start having dreams of flying. And that means you're letting go of some psychic and spiritual baggage that you just don't need in your life, or a psychic baggage and old imprints that can be on our energy field. These herbs, reishi in particular, are wonderful in helping remove that stuff, clear our connection to our higher calling, to the light.
Yeah, I
reishi,
feel...
in fact...
Well, we'll go ahead on that, but I was just going to say that, what you're saying is that the Taoist tonic system is using plants to help us accelerate our own spiritual growth, our health, and our overall, development as a being, as a conscious being on the planet. And I find that to be such an important piece of the puzzle because we were raised with this other belief that it really has nothing to do with food and it's all about something else.
Science.
Yeah, science.
They're starting to finally crack too,
Yeah, it's starting to, well, yeah, I think when you get into so much pain and so much problem, then you start going, well, maybe they had something going on back there in China or wherever.
Yeah. And that's part of the whole road to wisdom is, banging your toe a number of times on the way.
Yeah, exactly. So what were we going to tell us about this Shen
reishi is said to activate or initiate, the term is, it initiates a benevolent cycle of health in your life. That's also physical health, because this is one of the great immune herbs of the world. It's actually an immune regulating herb, so it helps with excessive immune and deficient immune. It helps bring things into balance there. But
so excessive immune would be like an autoimmune condition.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you start taking a lot of reishi, this does not alter your consciousness at all in any way. It actually just enhances your connection to everything in a kind of a symbiotic view. But your life starts to become more abundant. And it's universal, At some point, I want to go out to like Arkansas and find some like lumberjacks and truck drivers and just and film them taking reishi for like a few weeks and just watch the transformation, because it's a universal thing that the edges start softening and the light starts getting more full of color and things start to change in your life. You find yourself able to give more and you start receiving more. It's really amazing.
That's fantastic. That is just fantastic. Reishi has been a big part of my life for the past few years. And one of the things I really have noted about reishi is just this kind of like bone lacquered smoothness. Yeah. Now we've got some folks who are watching right now who want to go out and forage for this stuff wildly.
Yeah.
And one of the things I can tell you is that this particular quality, that bony, shiny, lacquered look, is when you know you got it.
Yeah.
When you see that, you got it.
The pharmaceutical of this name, the Latin pharmaceutical name is Ganoderma, which means mushroom. Ganoderma lucidum, which means shiny mushroom.
Wow.
Luminescent mushroom.
Wow.
You know what I love about that name, though? It can also imply it makes you lucid. Clear.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is wonderful.
It's a great word. Lucidity is a very good word.
This is a Ganoderma oregonese that grows up through the Pacific. It's probably either the same thing or closely related, because the dust of this mushroom all over this planet. All they need is certain conditions. Usually older mountain chains, indigenous, highly eroded mountain chains like the Appalachians
are loaded with these spores.
Trees. Yeah.
Let's talk about this combination of these different herbs, because we've got so many different things here, right? Maybe you could take a few through a few other ones, and then how would we combine these together? I mean, how do we take these 70 Taoist tonic herbs and put it together? And is there a strategy to doing that?
Let's build a little three treasures formula.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start with Jing. So this is going to be mainly a tonic formula to tonify the three treasures. So we're going to start with some Rehmannia to get that yin Jing, charge up the old batteries there. Put a lot of that in. And then we'll go with some Ho Shou Wu.
Now we're going to actually make a tea out of this, right? So when we finally put this all together, did we just kind of get a big mix going, and then boom, we throw it in a teapot and make a tea out of it? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to focus on this tea on it's going to be a good charge-up tea for good future energy charge-up, like on our kidney level.
Okay.
Rather than going yang jing, where so we'll focus on building up energy with a yin jing formula here. So, okay, so we've got Rehmannia and Ho Shou Wu here. Now we'll go next with Qi, and so what we're going to do then is support the Jing through tonifying the spleen, sort of like turn up the cooker, get the food cooked down and turn that into the agents that preserve our health and longevity.
Okay.
So we're going to put some white attractylose in there. Now this is an important aspect here, and this gives you some insight into the sophistication of the Chinese materia medica. It's so sophisticated. But so white attractylose dries the spleen and helps to keep it from getting damp, which we don't want. But you want an agent to support that, and that is poria. Poria is a mycelia.
Okay, so it's a mushroom.
And it is known to help transform the damp that's dampening the spleen, to kind of help not diuretically so much, but just to transform that more into qi, to help to cook down the moisture.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
So you want to remove the moisture from around the spleen that's dampening it. So these two agents are going to do that.
Okay, so attractylose, poria. Okay, and so we're developing this qi side.
Yeah. Now what we want to do, because we were talking about blood being the agent of qi, the activation of blood, building it, that is the fuel of our body. So we're going to add a bit of dong guai.
Dong guai.
Yeah. Dong guai is a very important herb to understand. It's thought that it's sort of phytoestrogenic properties, but really very little. I wouldn't worry about it too much. It's in fact, the phytoestrogens that are here are thought to be more relative to estrone, which is is the better of the estrogens. It's more closely related to progesterone, and so. But really, what dong guai is thought to do, based on some recent Chinese studies, is it apparently there's a carrier protein in the body called apoferritin, which is responsible for the transferal of iron from once iron has been rendered out of the food. Say we've eaten spinach, which is extremely high in iron. The transportation of that iron to the bone marrow to build new blood.
Okay.
That's where the recent Chinese studies and Japanese studies have found that this activates apoferritin's function, so we get iron to the bone marrow. Very important for building blood.
Now, dong guai, I see it's often used in a female context, like with women, but men can have it too, right? That's what you're saying about this phytoestrogen thing. It's really, it's for men and women.
Yeah, dong guai is used because women lose blood. And one of the unfortunate syndromes we have, and pretty widespread in America, because of that is due to lack of qi, lack of iron in the food, and the lack of the upright qi of the movement of qi through the body, is that women are over-bleeding oftentimes.
Okay,
This sets up a chronic cycle of anemia, like the qi just kind of settles because it isn't being kept up, going to the extremities, hands and feet are cold.
So let's back that up for a second. Let's say we have a problem with excessive menstrual bleeding and even menstrual problems. How would this fit in, and what would we do about that, just as a little digression?
This, along with, because we do have to go to the spleen when we're looking at that equation, we want to activate the spleen's ability to get iron out of the food we're eating.
Okay.
Then the spleen, one of the spleen's actual jobs, and even Western medicine acknowledges that it is to insert a new iron ion into old spent red blood cells after they've been devitalized. Now they're starting a new cycle of qi.
Okay.
To get a new iron ion in there, so that's qi is the fortification. Iron is the fortification of blood.
Yeah.
Oxygen is the mobilization of blood. So between those two, so a lot of women will go do yoga in the morning, and that'll kind of get them.
Get that qi moving upwards,
and they'll get through the day. But the next day they feel like, I got to go do yoga again. What we want to do then is get the iron in and get it transformed into blood in the body. Then when we have a lot of blood, what happens is